pull this one.
Sick.
He got sick.
Which one?
The Japanese beetle presentation. No, he's sick.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. We are here for the Commissioners' Weekly Meeting. I will now call the meeting to order and ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of current agenda. Any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, we need to pull item number 3 off of regular business. They are not, something came up, they were not able to be here today, so we need to pull that for presentation at a later time. Other than
right.
that, would move for approval of the remainder.
Question on item 4, is Pam going to be here then? I think she's still going to be here, isn't she? She will. Okay. I second.
All right, we have motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of minutes, November 20th, 2024. Any additions or corrections?
None here.
Just
Sure.
one Scribner's thing, but other than that's good.
Okay, the Scrivener's error was,
Oh, just, in here. Not a,
okay. The minutes say interim Commissioner Stephen Bauman, but, when you take office, when you get sworn in, I mean, not to be a technical error, but is it incorrect or not?
No, he's a county commissioner.
All right. So County Commissioner, no longer interim. So thank you for that correction. Approval of warrant registers and payroll rosters.
Do we have any?
have any,
Oh,
You got it?
yeah.
I didn't see any this morning.
Sorry.
All righty. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, looks like we have 3. I move for approval of fund expenditures in the amount of $397,659.43, and note that it has been reviewed by 2 members of the Auditor's Office and our County Administrator.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I have, I move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the amount of $1,286,260.40, and again, been reviewed by 2 members of the Auditor's Office and the County Administrator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
We have a third this morning, Umpqua and excise tax. I move for approval of fund expenditures in the amount of $10,353.27, again being reviewed by 2 members of the Auditor's Office and our County Administrator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name. You have 3 minutes. Hearing, seeing none. Moving on to approval of consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 6 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to regular business. Resolution 2024-0276, current expense 2024 budget transfers, presented by Tim Anderson, Director of Finance.
You'll get this from me. Tim is unable to be here today as he's dealing with family issues. So I want to just quickly just run through the 5 items that have a transfer. I don't think this will be our last transfer of the year, but this is where we currently have a number of items. First is in public defense, where we think we may not need all of these resources, but to be safe, we're going to transfer $150,000 to public defense from non-departmental contingency, $100,000 for our Superior Court contracts, and $50,000 for our district court contracts. We are also transferring $25,000 to the coroner for the cost of autopsies. You might recall during his budget presentation, talking about the increase in the cost of autopsies that have gone up from approximately 12, almost doubled in price. And that is in part due to, frankly, the very few number of forensic pathologists to be able to do this work. And then some small increases in salaries and benefits within district court of $8,000 and probation assessment for $8,000. So that totals $191,000 in transfers from non-departmental contingency. And that completes my report. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Questions?
So you said this probably won't be our last transfer. Do you foresee any on the horizon already, or this?
We do anticipate, and we're doing analysis around it right now to see what if any, what the total impact might be, but we do anticipate potentially something coming in from the Sheriff's Office on Corrections. We're taking a look at medical expenses in particular. But don't know to the extent of that, and don't know to the extent of which can be absorbed within the sheriff's budget versus we'll also need funds from the non-departmental contingency. Don't know yet.
Okay.
And there could be others at this point. These are the ones that we had in the queue and ready.
Okay.
And if we do have to do another one, we've got, we'll talk more about the other 2 meetings. We've got 3 meetings we've got coming up this year.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0276.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to Resolution 2024-0277 Bi-County Interlocal Agreement for Provision of Information Technology Services presented by Judge Stam Benton and Franklin County Superior Court. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, Commissioner Bauman, Chairman Mullen, and Commissioner Didier. So this is on today, I thought, for discussion, but I think it's also on for passing of a resolution. But I understand there's been lots of discussions about the interlocal agreement. We're talking about 8 computers that are here in Franklin County that have Benton County information systems loaded on it. And since 2017, we've had this interlocal agreement about how the operation of those computers are run, and we're asking for one more computer to be added to the 8 that we have. And there's been a lot of discussions, I understand it, about the hourly rate for Benton County, and I think there were some questions about that. So if I can, if those are still questions, I can try to answer them to the best of my ability, and I can explain to you the importance of keeping those computers that we have for the judges to be able to do their job and have our staff here in Franklin County if you would like. So what I understand is that the Benton County is charging a rate that includes the rate for 3 people for projects. So that if there's a project that has to be done here in Franklin County with respect to those computers, that is the hourly rate that they will charge. I can share with you that Superior Court budgets annually $5,000 a year to cover that assigned budget. That Benton County billed us $225 in 2023, and in 2024 they billed us almost $1,300 for that. So even though we have a $5,000 budget, we've never come close to paying that amount for those services here in Franklin County. I can share with you how it used to be before we had the interlocal agreement, which is when we had 2 computers on our benches, or not on our benches, but on our chambers. So we had 1 computer for Benton County, we had 1 computer for Franklin County. It's not conducive, it's not efficient is basically what it comes down to. It's not efficient. We had 2 email addresses. That was totally inefficient because the judges had to monitor two different email. It's just not workable, right? We're a bi-county judicial district, and we work for both counties. So it would be really difficult for the bench if we were to go backwards and not have this interlocal agreement maintain for the future next 2 years. I don't know if I've answered your questions with those, or if you have any more specific questions that you have. We're basically just asking to maintain what we've been doing for the past, since 2017.
Questions?
My question's been sufficiently answered, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, no further questions, thank you.
All right, well, thank you then. Like I said, I'm not sure if this is on for discussion today or if it's actually on.
pass, yeah.
We're, okay, all right,
Thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0277 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 2024-0278, Horticultural Pest and Disease Board 2025 Budget, presented by Pam Loa, Program Coordinator.
She's not here.
He is not here.
That's why I asked.
All right.
Could I move for amendment of the agenda and just table it or pull it?
We should table it just in case she shows up before, but we're a
Finished.
little while longer.
Mr. Chairman, I would move
You sent her a
for
text? Okay.
amendment of the agenda to table item number 4 in regular business, Resolution 2024-0278, for potential reevaluation.
I second.
A motion and a second for the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner Administrator updates.
Eric Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just give a few different items. We'll be meeting next week with Josh Corvus around some potentials for interim Director of Office of Public Defense while he departs here in December. So we're looking at once again, some interim alternatives. Once the budget is adopted, and assume it adopts with that Director of OPD in it, we'll then go out for a permanent recruitment for that position. Obviously, the budget, I won't cover much of that. That's spent a number of the hours that I have with you. I've been working on that. The Historic Preservation Committee, just to let you know that you might go into the auditor's office and take a look at some of the initial work that they have been doing. They've been working in partnership with the museum, and there's some documents that are now over in, hanging up in the 2 alcoves over in the auditor's office. So please feel free to take a look at that. And some new areas of, might see some placards going up in some of the little alcoves within the dome, explaining a little bit of the names of the communities that are in the stained glass, and where is Snake River, and where are the ones that are underwater now, as well as those that are still here. So many thanks to the members of that committee that have been working on that. Teresa and I have been going through applications, or working through applications for the recruitment of the office assistant. We had 12 RFP responders for the recruitment for the county administrator. So we were quite surprised, frankly, that we had that much interest. So that's good news. Myself, Margot, and Mackenzie will be going through those and bringing you a recommendation of the firm to select to proceed with that recruitment. Next week, you'll see a continuation of my employment agreement. You'll see that next week for your consideration. Let's see. We have been working to assure that if we need a temporary closure of the courthouse, or what's referred to around here as Code Red, which is if we need a late opening or early closure because of weather conditions, inclement weather conditions, and we do have an inclement weather policy. I will be working closely with with Craig, who is in contact with the school districts as well. And the protocol has been the county administrator would contact and call the chair to confirm with the chair. And my plan is if the chair isn't available, I'll go to the vice chair, to the third chair at this time, and just work my way till I get to one of you. And absent one of you, I will make the decision in conjunction with Craig. I will then communicate, or in conjunction, before I do that, I'll communicate with Superior Court to determine whether the closure is of both the courthouse and the courts, or just the courthouse. So we'll do that in conjunction with the courts, who have to make their own determination as well. So I've been talking with Tiffany about that in that process as well. So we're working through that. Hopefully, it'll be a perfect winter, and we won't need to do that. But just in case, we may need to be able to do that. At our last meeting of the year, so be thinking about this, the last meeting of the year, we're going to talk about your assignments, your board and commission and outside work group assignments for 2025. So be thinking about that. I've heard from some of you individually to say, I'd like to get off of certain ones, or I'd like to get onto certain ones. Well, you all three will have that opportunity to do that. Having been a commissioner that came in as the new one, you usually got what everyone else did not want. So it'll give you an opportunity to have that discussion collectively as a board at our last meeting in December, so that during the first meeting in January, we could, in fact, have those ready to go for your adoption. We do want to do a 3-month extension to the HAPO interlocal agreement with Pasco, so we'll get that worked on for you by your end of your meeting in December. Just to remind folks, our last meeting in December actually will be on the 18th. We will not meet either December 25th or January 1st, and our first meeting of the new year will be January 8th. The 25th and the 1st are Wednesdays, and those are holidays. I want to thank Jennifer and the facilities team for getting some of the decorations and the holiday up in the rotunda and throughout the building. It just looks really festive. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of come into our community. The community has been working on both sides of the river on temporary warming shelters, and those are now being posted throughout. And so folks have questions about those. Both Benton Franklin Public Health has been coordinating those. They're on their website. We will try and post those warming center locations as well on our website as well. So that's been certainly something really positive as well for the community to deal with as well. And finally, since it's Thanksgiving, I do want to thank you all for the chance to be here in Franklin County. I appreciate it immensely. It's wonderful to be back in a county and serving with you. I think just want to say thank you to the staff. They don't get enough thanks for the work they do for our citizens. There are times people want to demean their work and their service to our residents, but they're fulfilling the statutory and constitutional responsibilities, and I just really appreciate the work that they do and the integrity in which they fulfill those responsibilities. So I'm very thankful for the work that they do on not just our behalf, but the behalf of the citizens here as well. So that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This last week had the Columbia River County's caucus meeting. And in the theme of Thanksgiving, also want to thank the very dedicated staff, and I was invited to the annual Public Works lunch, and so thank you very much to the Public Works. Really enjoyed doing that and finding the camaraderie there. It feels much more at home than in a suit and tie for me. I've spent much more time on a road grader than I've spent in a suit and tie, and so that's I really enjoy that. So thank you for that invitation. Wassac Zoom, talking about the annual budgeting, some of the litigation that's going on with Wassac on behalf of the counties, legislative priorities. That was a long meeting. Wassac, because of our budget discussions last week and so forth. I was not able to be there, but Wasac had a multi-day annual their meeting for election of officers and structure and budget and so forth. Also met with a number of constituents this last week. Had a constituent out north that had some concerns, so was able to go out there a number of times and meet with them and try to help with the situation there. Emergency communications meeting with Eric and the IS department, talking about what if and how do we and so forth. So appreciate all the dedicated work that's happening there. Multiple phone calls about emergency communications from people throughout the county, and have had, there's lots of robust conversation being had there, and we have a lot to figure out. I'm told that there is a plan. I don't know what the plan is, but I'm told that others have been working on a plan, and so I'm looking forward to hearing what that is. And then I thought I would give you guys an update. Most of you guys know my son is in basic training, and so finally got a letter from him, and it was pretty fun. He said, "I'm always hungry." He said, "I'm tired, sick, sore," and he said, "But overall, I'm doing great." So his mom was pretty excited to get that last little piece of overall he's doing great. So he's doing really well and enjoying it. So thought you guys would enjoy that. So that, Mr. Chairman, is my update.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Didier.
Yes, busy week this last week, Columbia River County's caucus meeting, and they had a presentation on the breaching of dams in Oregon. And I asked the question as what the ill effect was of the salmon runs, and they said the silt and the algae has created diseases in them, and it's hurting their runs. So the breaching of the dams is not an answer for restoring fish runs. It'll hinder them for a decade or more. Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Board meeting, and this was all on the same day, so I missed the executive board. I attended the annual stakeholder meeting because of the Columbia River County's caucus meeting. Board of Health meeting, which I got it okayed on December 18th after our meeting is the Board of Health meeting, and I have a team of doctors coming in to tell us the ill effects of the vaccination. Got it okayed, it's on the agenda, it's going to be presented at the Board of Health on the 18th if anybody's interested in attending. Pre-certification on Monday, certification of the general election, and I just got to say hats off to the girls down there at the Salema. They did a fantastic job, made it very easy for us to get this done this time, and very professionally well done job down there. Still waiting for the AG's opinion, and of course our AG is all involved now in trying to thwart Trump's agenda. So we're still patiently awaiting for this opinion on unconstitutional pay. I think we should probably pursue without him because it doesn't look like they're going to move on it. So that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. So last week, of course, had the budget review meeting, had the Columbia River caucus meeting, as Commissioner Didier and Stephen Bauman both commented on. I just want to say that so the public's aware, we're already struggling for power. I mean, we've turned away business in Franklin County because we simply cannot provide the power requirements that they're needing. And breaching the dams is going in the opposite direction. So, also had the Board of Health meeting, a lot of talk on the septic systems and new rules that are trying to be put in place, and one of them is lot size. And I can say I'm not in agreement with lowering, or I mean, with increasing the lot size for a septic system. I mean, we're already in need of more housing in this county, and increasing the lot size for a septic system, I think, is also going in the wrong direction. Also had the meeting with Eric Johnson and Bo with IS on the radio system. And it's going to present a lot of challenges for us. Our system is antiquated and it needs to be updated. And I know it probably sounds like I'm picking on the transit, but I just want the public to be aware of how much money the transit is collecting. They have millions in surplus, and I understand the need for this transit system in our area. It's a much needed service and provides a good service for the residents. But it's been so many years now, I think it's time to reevaluate and look at the amount of tax that is going to the transit. If you took away 1/10 of 1%, because they currently collect 6/10 of 1%, they would still have enough funds to operate efficiently. I think we should take that 1/10 of 1% and use it for emergency radio systems for public safety. I think that it has been enough time now that it's time to reevaluate and look and say, hey, these are your taxpayer dollars, and where are they going and how are they being spent? It seems like everybody's always too busy or too much of in a hurry to increase your tax rate. And I think looking at the current past election where it was turned down, the people are taxed enough. I mean, Franklin County, City of Pasco, we have the highest tax in the Tri-Cities of the 3 cities. And I think it would be detrimental to go over the 9% tax rate for sales tax. I think the citizens spoke loudly that they're tired of their taxes being raised. And I think it's our duty to reevaluate how our tax dollars are being spent. And I'm not picking on the transit. I'm just saying it's time to relook at it again and try to readjust that tax rate and put those monies where it's going to public safety. And it is a much needed use of that money, and public safety should be and is our #1 priority. So also had some concerned citizens calling in about the radio system. So in my honest opinion, I believe that is the best avenue. It would definitely solve a lot of issues and help us with the funding for a much-needed system. And that concludes my report for this week.
We got Pam's here.
And I see that Pam is here, so we had tabled the resolution 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more item that I apparently skipped over, just to give you a quick update, and Teresa will be working with you on scheduling. We do hope to have a potential planning director candidate come before, or an in-person interview with staff, but then also have an opportunity to meet individually with board members as well. So that'll be sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, Commissioner Bowden.
So I am so sorry. I forgot an important piece in my update, if you're all right with that.
Yes.
So I reached out to Senator Dozier, and I said, we cannot let emergency communications fail. What do we do? He's a former county commissioner himself, has dealt with a very similar deal. So he is diligently working on that, and as soon as this meeting is over, myself and our IS director have a meeting this afternoon with Senator Schessler in Ritzville. So we'll be leaving and headed up there, and similar question for Senator Schessler is, hat in hand, we need some help with this. How do we do it? You have experience in this. I'm not an expert, but I know that we need help in making this happen. I'm trying to turn over every rock we can, and so that's a couple of the things that I forgot to report on. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, moving back to Resolution 2024-0278, Horticultural Pest and Disease Board 2025 Budget presented by Pam Loa, Program Coordinator. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for your patience here. And I always feel like I'm eating this thing. Right, thank you. All right, well, good morning, Commissioners and Eric. Jeff, I have been talking to you about some things anyway. So, good morning, and we are here to give you a summary of the Horticultural Pest and Disease 2024, as well as look at what we've got going on for 2025. So, I'm going to bring up, let's see, our activity report. And this, why does it look like that? Oh, here we go. Okay. So what you see here, this gives you a snapshot of what activities we do throughout the year. And as you see, what this sheet right here, this information provides every month and the number of trees, fruit trees specifically, and what they are. So for people that aren't aware, the Horticultural Pest and Disease Board is governed by RCW 1509, and that provides us authority to provide any education toward residential backyard fruit trees as well as commercial. We advocate for the commercial growers and to protect their produce to make sure that it does get moved around and shipped where it needs to go to provide fruit for the rest of the community as well as the state. So what we do with the backyard fruit trees with residents is we like to go out and provide an education to them primarily. We're not going to go in there and start enforcing. That's not our first choice. And so we will provide them information as well as some care guides, which are like spray guides. So they know how to take care of their trees, and we can teach them how to prune, et cetera, if they choose to keep the tree. Now, a lot of people don't realize that they do need to do something to that tree. You cannot do nothing. If you do nothing, you will have pests in your fruit. And if you are in a 2-mile radius of a commercial orchard, that is really frowned upon by the Horticultural Pest and Disease Boards. And we are a little bit more particular about our education, put it that way. So right now, we use, it's called a field map and it's an ArcGIS. And we go and what we do in the spring is a little mailer goes out into everybody's tax statement. And that is the first opportunity we offer people to consider removing that tree if it's messy, if they just don't want it anymore. A lot of times what happens is somebody moves to a house, there's fruit trees already there, they don't know what to do with them, and they will usually, from word of mouth, will contact us. And then so we'll go out and we validate the tree for removal, and then the resident gets to remove that tree at their own, time frame. And because we have it documented, then it's just a matter of they take an after photo, and then in return we send them a voucher that has a value of $100 that could be used toward any some participating local merchants. And right now, I have to say, Ranch and Home is the winner for the most redeemed vouchers. So coming down here, so one of the services that we offer to orchardists, specifically cherries, is a inspection for cherry leaf roll virus. And my inspector, Connor, he goes out to specific orchards every other year. And so this year, his goal was 1,460 acres, and that was 63 orchards. So what he does is he'll go out, and there are two identifying symptoms of cherry leaf roll virus in a tree. And so if he determines both those symptoms are there, he marks the tree for recommended removal. And so this year, he marked 443 trees for removal. And so not last year, but the year before, because like I said, he does every other year, he marked 1,095 trees for removal. And so that keeps him pretty busy. And then going forward, so this year we started doing more codling moth monitoring. We're not doing enforcement at this time. It's just been a recommendation by the board to do monitoring. And so the orchards that we targeted were 5 acres or less. And we put out 54 traps, and how we trap is it's just a guideline for 1 trap per 5 acres. And so the peak activity is usually like like I said here, late May to early August is when they're really active. And this year we had an inquiry out at Radar Hill area where was it the former naval base? And there was a lot of excess pressure from the codling moth. And so we were called in, and what we did with the inquiry is we targeted around like the lower area of that of the Radar Hill, and we found some residential areas or residents with fruit trees that weren't being maintained. And so we did, with the residents' cooperation, remove a really large Granny Smith apple tree, as well as, I think, 3 or 4 pear trees. And so by the end of the season, I think that had reduced the pressure from the feedback we received. So that's successful. And it just gives you an idea of one of the things we will do working with the orchardists. So the Japanese beetle, as you know, is here. And Washington State Department of Agriculture has been doing, after we found the first catch, then they're brought in and it becomes their project because it is an invasive species. And so what we did is we went outside of their area, which was more outside the city of Pasco. So all of our trappings and the findings have been in the city of Pasco. And we put out 58 traps, which were out in the county area, and we didn't find anything out there. And as you see, they fly usually around June to late August, and after that, they go in ground and are wintered over. So Camilla was going to be here and provide us an update, and unfortunately, he is sick. But I wanted to provide just some county information that he provided. So the city limits of Pasco, there were 550 traps set by WSDA. And they caught 409 beetles this year. That's not the direction we want necessarily, compared to last year was 5. And so they'll be focusing on a couple of hot spots that they have detected, and they're going to be doing treatment area and expanding that and including a foliar. And Camilla will be here hopefully at the next meeting to provide a more, detailed report. But he said primarily it's Volunteer Park, Sylvester Park, and Lords. So that's unfortunately where I think one of the hot spots is. I was surprised because I'm not sure where they were coming from. All right, does anybody have any questions so far on just the current activity, and then I'll just pop into 2025 real quick.
Questions?
I just, not so much a question, looking forward to what you have to say. I'm just assuming that because of the increased activity, they have a plan for 2025.
They do, and I'm going to leave that to Camillo to, but it will be more foliar treatment and the granule in specific residential areas that are defined in that zone.
Did the catches go outside of the quarantine area very much, or was it primarily contained inside of that area that was designated?
Let's call it designated and not quarantine, please.
Sure. So the designated area is where the primary catch was.
Yes, so it actually, they found them all over throughout the city limits. So he said that it didn't look like a gradual spread. They just ended up being like these pockets. And he'll have a map, and that'll be a lot more visual detail. Yeah. But they're working on it, and they'll probably have a controlled vegetation area, I'm guessing. And so people won't be able to move their vegetation outside of that area. But that's something WSDA will work with the city of Pasco. And because all the catches are in the city limits.
Can you describe the difference in a designated area versus a quarantine? What is a quarantine?
So when a community goes into a quarantine, that means that landscapers, the garbage, everything has to go to a specific area, and you have to get a permit to go outside of that quarantined area. So right now, Franklin County is not in a quarantine. So everybody, the vegetation can move freely right now for shipping. Does that?
I understand. Thank you.
So going into 2025, we're prioritizing orchards. So right now, Connor, I mentioned the cherry leaf rovirus inspections. And there are some orchards that haven't had any CLRV at all. And so we're going to become a little bit more efficient with his time, and we'll move those orchards to like every third year of an inspection. So that will free Connor up to do a lot more trapping for codling moth and apple maggot, as we determined would be our goal at our last board meeting. So with that, it's also expanding the trapping of apple maggot, western cherry fruit fly, and codling moth. And again, our focus is usually around a 2-mile radius of a commercial orchard. And looking at, so with the commercial orchards, we kind of put it around the perimeters. But then, and then if there's any residential, we will probably trap directly in that tree. And then provide them, with any information they need to take care of the tree, if they choose to keep it. So we'll continue to collaborate with growers and sharing best practices and coordinate management efforts. And part of that is going to be we're going to offer some training. We've learned that a lot of the field men, they need pesticide. They need to have their pesticide license. And sometimes that's a little difficult for them to get. So there is some training that is provided to help them with the testing. And so we're talking to some different groups about perhaps like a grant to offer to help them. And then working with organizations such as, realtors and HOAs about backyard fruit trees and the legal responsibility as well as maintenance. And then, like I said, we're going to continue using the Field Map app. This has been a really good tool for us, thank you, Michael, because it has different layers. And so we're able to see all the WSDA Japanese beetle traps. And we will be seeing all the WSDA apple maggot traps. And then what we do is when, like I said, when we go out and we validate a tree, we also drop a pin. And the nice thing about this app, it will allow you to create a route. So that's more time efficiency for the my inspectors. They could set the route and they go and check all the different trees. And then we've got, again, like I was saying with Radar Hill, we have, we'll be going back there to just follow up on the pressure, just make sure that it has been reduced, and we'll be able to, close that inquiry. And it's been nice because we like inquiries, we don't like complaints, because a formal complaint means will be legal action taken. Any questions so far on 2025? All right, I'm going to go into our budget for 2025. Let's see here. This is a good one. All right. Nope. Can you see that okay? But then you should have it, what just happened? Have it in front of you. Okay. So this is I've given you a comparison. In the green is 2025 for next year. And what I included was the parcels. And this is part of how we receive our assessment. So we have a special assessment fee that taxpayers will see on their statement. And for residents, it's $6.30 a year. And for tree fruit acreage, it's $4.50 an acre. And so what I wanted to demonstrate is how our parcels are changing. And this year was the first year since our assessment. So we'll see some improvement on some different activity. So as you can see with the tree fruit acreage, it is slowly declining. And it could be a variety of things. It could be reporting. It could be, they're pulling them up for development and not replanting. They're just selling it. So I'm going to include that going forward just for like a trajectory. So we really didn't have any changes.
Is this item in our packet? I'm not finding this one.
This should be in your packet. So the only thing that you won't have in your packet is like the parcel and tree fruit acreage, but you should have the 3-year. You should see.
So I'm seeing it now. So we have this, but it does not include the green column.
Okay. You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
We don't have the green column, and I can't read
Oh,
that
you don't have the
from
green
here
column at all?
at all.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm glad I brought this up. So you can kind of see.
There we go. Keep going. Keep going.
Thank you.
Two more.
So, just want to see.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Technology. All right, so this gives you an idea. Go. There. So what I was saying, we don't have a lot of changes as far as some of our expenses. And let's see here. So we were able to roll over, tentatively, the $239,789 from from 2024. And I have a new inspector that's coming on, and so she'll be included in the salaries and wages. And so we have, I want to say, 4 staff budgeted in the event that something should occur. So I've got 2 inspectors and then possibly a third, which can be like an intern or just additional help. So, for example, if we get a call, well, like one of these inquiries that take away from their normal day-to-day, if it's like a special circumstance, then we could bring in an additional person and it's already in the budget. Like Japanese beetle, you know, like I had last year, I had just exclusive trapping of Japanese beetle. All right, and then a lot of the other items, they are just standard, you know, cost of doing business, and that includes the services that we receive from the county, which we're really grateful for. And additional communications, we'll do some more mailers this year, and just, yeah. You have any questions?
So under advertising, it looks like in 24, you used $250, and now you're going for 4,000. If you go on down, postal direct mailing, you go from 1,100 to 6,000. I'm assuming that is a drastic increase in education and outreach to the community. Is that what those two things
Yes.
are for?
Yeah, those items that I had spoke about earlier for our objectives for 2025 are included in those line items.
I'm assuming that you've got a plan and kind of know that that's what those cost, because those two items are a drastic increase over years past. You kind of have a program laid out for where that's going, what you're headed for.
Yes, and also what's included is we have some, we're going to be doing, improving our branding, and we have a logo being designed. And so that will include, you know, business cards and, well, just updating other items, or advertising items for our branding.
Okay. Under your tree replacement program, in the past, your budget has been, you know, 10,000 2 years ago, and you used half of that. You increased that, but increasing your use by more than 3 times. Do you believe that's a realistic increase?
Yes, because what we were doing is we were breaking out. So what this is going to encapsulate is all of the costs for that tree replacement program. So before, we were breaking them out into different line items, and so we weren't really getting a really clean snapshot. So this everything's going to be in one line item, so we'll be able to see exactly what we're spending on that program.
Okay, just a little bit of feedback for you. This last week, I talked to a gentleman that lives out off of Birch Road, and he was very, very thankful for the interactions that you guys had, and was thankful for this program. He felt it was very helpful, and so wanted to tell you thank you for that. He
thank
felt
you.
that it was very helpful, and your quick response and communication was valuable for him, so thank you so much for that.
Oh, good. Thank you for that feedback. Appreciate it. Well, that's all for my presentation for 2025 and our recap of 2024. If anybody has any questions at this time, otherwise, I'm
I have
done.
a couple of questions, and it's just more for information, but
Yeah.
Your backyard fruit trees and maintenance, what are the most important things that a homeowner can do to take care of their trees?
Prune them and
Okay.
thin them. And if you choose not to cut the tree down, please remove the fruit, especially the infested fruit, and it, you know, as it drops to the ground, because if all that fruit down there is it's just attracting other pests that you may or may not want in your yard. And there are spray guides, and so there are things you can do organically that we offer suggestions for, and that is, so your backyard fruit trees don't need to be 20 feet tall. how can you manage a 20-foot tall tree? You don't, you don't need to. So fruit trees are a little different in the respect that you can keep them to a manageable height. And when it's a manageable height, it's easier to take care of. You could just throw a net, a horticulture net over your tree if you wanted to. Another way, and then you don't have to spray. Another item you can, or option, is you can, if you have apples, there's little bags, and you can bag the apples. And so that prevents anything like codling moth specifically from getting into your apples. And, so there's organic sprays, and WSU provides spray guides, and that's what we use as well for recommendation to residents. But yeah, you can't, if you don't do anything, you're gonna get worms. A lot of people, they move over here from the west side and have said that they've never had to spray or do anything with their trees. But I'm like, well, welcome to agriculture country.
That's one of the reasons why I ask is like you see, like in Stevens County, old homesteads that have trees that have been there for years, and there doesn't seem to be any worm problems with them. And is it because the animals are eating the fruit that falls, or what is it? Because I'm just curious. I mean, as far as what causes the worms to come in? Is it the fruit that's laying on the ground, or?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how the best way to answer this question, because it doesn't have a straightforward answer. I mean, it's kind of like, plant it and they will come. And if you have neighbors around you that have infested trees, that is going to bring them to your tree as well. But now, how did they get there? Well, a lot of times if people bring fruit in, has come in soil, the codling moth, a lot of times they overwinter in crates. So the commercial orchards, though, they're spraying. I mean,
Right.
They're taking care of their orchards and their land. So it's not commercial orchards that are bringing the pests in.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
I
I
mean,
was
that's
just
it. I'm
curious how
sorry.
you
It's kind of like
maintain
a
them because,
multi-answer.
what's that?
It's kind of a multifaceted answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious because
Chicken
I'm
before
like,
the egg,
when I see trees up there and go pick the apples off them, and I don't see any worms in them, and I'm like, well,
That's because you ate it. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, okay. I wondered what the extra flavor was. So you just don't see them, or
Us?
worms in
Oh,
the
yeah.
apples?
There are indicators if your tree is infested.
Okay.
And, if people call us, we'll go out, we'll look at them. Or if we're out and we see something, we'll just, knock on the door and see if they want. The difference between a resident and a commercial, one of them is, for a resident, it's an option.
Right.
It's an option. And, sprays get expensive, or, they're getting elderly, they don't want to get up on the ladder anymore. And so it's nice that they do have the option that we could come out and cut the tree. So we offer a promotion twice a year, and that is for $50, we'll cut down the tree. Now, of course, there's certain circumstances that, we won't. However, most of the time, yeah, we will cut it down into pieces, but we don't grind the stumps and we don't carry away the limbs. That's before, that's after they remove all the fruit from the tree. Yeah. So like if you have cows, if you have, livestock, and they could regularly, eat the fruit, but that doesn't necessarily happen, and it doesn't resolve the problem of your tree being infested. It's not the answer. Did
Pardon me?
I answer your question?
Pretty much. I guess, someone had told me just don't let the fruit hit the ground, and that will help keep the health of the tree. So I don't know. I mean,
Why?
I don't know. Is the fruit laying on the ground? Is it
Oh, yeah, well, think
attracting.
about it. Okay. So you have a fruit tree, and and it provides this great shade. However, if your fruit is falling and it's on the ground and it's rotting, are you going to sit under that tree? There'll be flies, there'll be wasps, there'll be, like get fruit flies. You're not going to sit under that tree. And so that's why we do ask people, at least pick up the fruit that's rotting on the ground.
Sure.
And don't rely on your local raccoon or possum to come and get it.
Do you send out any notices to the governor to not transport fruit across the state?
I was told not to touch that. Yes, I didn't need to. I think the state did. You're funny. I thought people forgot about that.
No, it's like our fruit trees. We pick everything up off the ground.
Thank you.
We don't want rotting fruit, but I just wanted to know what the science was behind it. If that and indeed attracted them, or
Oh, well.
so.
Well, it will. I mean, the fruit up in the tree is going to have potentially codling moth maggot in it,
Okay.
right? And so they're going to fall to the ground regardless and winter over. So whether your fruit is still in the tree or if it's fallen to the ground, if you've got like codling moth, maggots in there, they're going to fall to the ground and winter over. So by picking up the fruit and at least putting it in a bag, if you know it's infested, that will kill it, and that helps reduce any the pressure. But a lot of times, codling moth, for example, could have 3 generations. So you can have like three different times throughout the year where you're going to have codling moth issues.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, call us. We'll come out. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah, well, my trees are in Stevens County, so
Oh, yeah, okay.
might be a little far away.
Well, then
but-
you're very
and our trees are so young. I mean, we get like 7 apples on per tree.
Yeah.
So,
But
we're trying to take
I'll
care of them.
follow up with you in a couple years and see how that's going without pests.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I don't want pests.
Right.
All right, any other further questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, could you send that sheet to the board? They have partial information of
Oh,
that
yeah.
sheet, but they don't have the green column or all the bottom line totals, so.
All
that'd be
right,
great.
yeah. Happy to.
You can get it to Teresa. Yep.
Yeah. Not yet. Okay. I don't have anything else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room?
You have a
we need to-
resolution, you have
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
resolution in front of you. 2024-0278.
All right, so at this point, I will entertain a motion on Resolution 2024-0278.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0278.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. I'm assuming there was no other administrative office business?
Nope.
I think we should just go ahead and combine that
We
into
really should.
updates and then
That'd be great.
make it life a lot simpler for us, so. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, and happy Thanksgiving. My focus is always what's best for the county, and sometimes we agree and disagree, but I'm very thankful for the work that Eric has done. I'm very grateful that the board has included looking for a new county administrator and that we have so many applicants. I think that we're definitely on the right track. I definitely agree that when I went to the transit meeting, they seemed very visionary, and we do need public transit. There's no question about that. People need the buses. I rode them in college downtown to a part-time job, and without that job, it would have been awful hard to make the ends meet. So, but I do agree that there is definitely an opportunity to trim back their budget, because the Big Five is the same taxing district as for the emergency CCOM project. It's the same taxing districts. And I think that I did talk to Eric personally about a way to do that. Part of it is by petition of the service area. I think I will pursue seeing what the budgets look like in those big 5 groups and see if there's some ability to return money and yet continue the public transit. I also talked to an individual that runs transit, and he's looking at it, taking over this part. But I do think that the taxpayers are definitely in need of an emergency system. And I've said before, I'm a fireman's, paramedic's wife, know firsthand how important that communication is, and we're going to have lives affected. I do believe that Congressional Legislative Representative Stephanie Bernard did get some money for that. You might want to check into that. But I'm very glad that you're pursuing with Schessler and Dozer. I have complete confidence in those 2 gentlemen. So most of my comments today are reflective of gratitude, and I believe that we're on the right track. We're looking at our budget with better pair of eyes. I do think that for a while, the reporting mechanism of the county administrator's position, not really being fully understood by the predecessor, Mr. Gonzalez, really shorted you in understanding all the decisions that you're making. So we need to move forward. We need to move forward and get liquid right away. I've seen some moves in City of Pasco that are very good. Continue to monitor that as well because we pay for both those taxes. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Just wanted to put it on your radar. Speaking of public safety and kind of the importance that it plays with the county.
Can you speak into the mic closer, please?
Yeah,
Thank
you bet. How's that?
That's better. Thank
That
you.
helps, thanks.
Just wanted to throw it on your radar a little bit, coming up before we finalize the budget. We're going to be in a kind of a critical situation with staffing. Right now, we are estimated to be at a 38% downfall in our felony numbers, our felony prosecutor numbers as of the 3rd of January. My chief criminal deputy has taken a position over in another county nearby, and the primary focus is looking at the pay disparities in these positions. We've had one position that has been vacant for approximately a year. The range is simply not attracting the folks that we need to be able to fill these positions. So overall, we're going to be down in the office a third, 29.5% within the office, but the shortage is, unfortunately, it's having the greatest impact in our felony prosecution division, and that's going to bring us, as of January 3rd, we'll be down 38% of the necessary staffing, and that's 38% without addressing, that's just keeping up with the current standard. I've told this board before that we're trying to do our best with the resources we have. We haven't expanded attorney numbers over the years, despite the fact that we've seen record growth. And that's just the unfortunate consequence with the proximity to a large county across the river that's twice our size. That means we get to pull all the disadvantages from that population growth as we prosecute crimes and offenses. So I just want to throw it on the board. I've sent a proposal to Margot as well as to Eric that kind of outlines where we have a little bit of disparities with the grade scaling for salaries. I've recognized that just like over the past year and I think before, the board has basically said we're looking at shortages, but unfortunately this is just this is hitting to a max, and there's been many things I've shared before that we've done. We've tried maximizing our felony diversion. We have our therapeutic courts that do take a little bit of the workflow or burden from our superior court, but the reality is we have cases that have to be prosecuted because they're serious, they're significant. Without having the resources in the office, there's only so much workload I could put on my deputies. Otherwise, that's going to create burnout and cause further attrition. And so, obviously, what the resolution or the resulting solution until we are able to fill those positions is just, we're going to have to make a triage, just like an ER. ER, if they get 100 people coming in the door for emergency services, they have to go through and figure out where's the arterial bleeds, where's the main events that need immediate treatment, and then those other things just get kind of set to the wayside. And that's unfortunate, because that means victims are going to be without compensation, without address. And I've been a firm believer that if we set aside prosecution against the lower level crimes, that just means that those individuals go on to commit more serious crimes later. So I just wanted to throw that on your radar. I put some information out to Eric and Margot. I'm hoping that we could discuss more details with the board in the budgetary sessions before a final budget is finalized, to hopefully be able to get some relief there to shorten this gap. Again, these are experienced individuals that, as a bare minimum requirement for the job, it's 7 years of post-high school education as the minimum requirement. And we're trying to just find people that are willing to go into public service law, and I know the same challenges exist for defense. The defense solution will be solved, I guess, if we don't have prosecutors to review and be able to prosecute these serious cases. So I just wanted to throw that out there to the board, so you have that information, and if I get the opportunity to go into a little bit more detail and discussion at some upcoming budgetary hearings before the final decision on the budget is made, I'd welcome that. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Hearing none, is there any need for executive session today?
No.
What?
Are you feeling okay?
Don't ask questions.
All right. Well, no need for executive session, and is there any business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. How long of a break we want to take before the workshop?
I'm good. I can go. Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the workshop agenda as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Public comment, limited to workshop agenda items only, limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the room for public comment addressing the workshop agenda?
I'm not sure if this addresses the workshop agenda.
It can only relate to what's on the workshop.
So,
Budget.
budget
Yes.
for new business? Is there a budget for that?
Preliminary budget 2025. Is your question addressed to that?
I'm not sure.
There'll be a second opportunity.
Okay, I'll come back. I'll circle back.
All right, thank you. Workshop discussion. 2025 preliminary budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I think I indicated earlier, Tim's not here, so we're going to keep it a fairly high level today. We will be back with you on Monday. There will be additional information that we probably will not have adoption of the budget till at least Tuesday. There is some levy things that we're still working with the assessors on, and some other potential issues. But I do have pieces for you to take a look at a pretty high level of the some comparisons between 25 and 24 adopted, and those are in front of you and handed out prior to the start of the meeting. There was also some handouts available for those that are here in the meeting room as well. So in the 2024 adopted budget was 49.38 million. And our 2025 projected and proposed to you is 51.62 million. So it is an increase of about 4.5%. or about $2.24 million. I do want to call to your attention kind of the trend line, which is very similar for 2025 as it has been for 2024 and earlier years as well, of a projected use of ending fund balance. So if you were to look at 2024, we projected the use of about 3.1 million of fund balance. In 2023, you ended up using only about $120,000 of ending fund balance, and in 2022, you used about $1 million of that. So you can see the 2022 ending fund balance was 7.326. It started at 8.4, and I'm on 1B, if you're following along with me on 1B. In 2023, actual is that 7.32 became your beginning fund balance. You used $120,000 of that. In 2024, it was 7.2. You projected utilizing 4.1 of that, but as you can see, we're actually projecting there will probably be an addition to your ending fund balance, and that will bring our new beginning fund balance to about 7.8 million, or about $600,000 of new funds to your beginning fund balance. So your trend really has not been to utilize these what looks like a large amount of use of your fund balance. And that's generally because of two things, and we've covered this before, is that revenue comes in above projections and expenditures come in below projections. So you have the kind of the perfect situation where you're actually not spending $3.8 million. So what I would have you take a look at, though, which is something we've been talking about, is even at 7.8, and these are all kind of projections. If you were to continue to stay at 7.8 million, that is about a 15% reserve or ending fund balance. It depends on people's views. Some folks in the Government Finance Officers Association would say you need at least 2 months, which would be 8.6 million. 3 months would be 12.9 million. So depending on how much fund balance you need, you certainly need cash flow, which is probably one of the most important things. But you want certain degree of reserve just to manage cash. You could then start to look at, do you need a risk reserve for when the economy might change? And so you could start to think about separating out cash flow for an ending fund balance for cash flow purposes versus a risk reserve for perhaps when the economy is turned down. If you were to utilize all of that, you're going to be down to about 7.5%. If your ending fund balance does actually drop to 3.8 million, and that's pretty significantly low. So we really do need to monitor throughout the year, as we were talking about just earlier this week, or last week, I guess it was, during the budget discussion, is making sure that as we proceed in really monitoring revenue. We've got two revenue sources that are really important to this budget, the interest income and sales tax. And so if those projections don't hold true, we would have to really be cognizant that we're going to be drawing more from that reserve potentially, or we need to more aggressively manage expenditures to make sure that we stay within not only our expenditure lines, but potentially start making reductions in expenditures. And that oftentimes is when we've started to talk about changes to FTE levels and our funding of staff and personnel. The current proposal does not include a road shift. Craig left the room, so but he's certainly been aware of the fact that the current proposal does not include the road shift. If you look at 2022, 2023, and 2024, you have done road shifts, which is a shift of revenue that could be collected by the county road fund. And instead of it being collected in the county road fund and paid only by the unincorporated residents, that property tax amount is shifted to the county current expense fund, and all county residents, property owners pay that portion. So we have no proposal in 2025 for that to occur. That means the rest of the amount in the county road fund will stay within the county road fund, and so they will have more funds to perhaps both go in deeper into some of their road maintenance activities or further down their 6-year transportation plan as well, or more funds to use as matching for other grants, et cetera. We can talk more about Craig. You look like you have a question.
I was going to say, that's, how many years has it been since we have not done a road shift?
My understanding, a long time.
I was going to say, it's.
Either a diversion or a shift. It's been a long time.
All right.
The second part to that is the proposal of taking the 1% property tax increase, which would generate $120,000. And if you did not do that, you would be projecting going deeper into the use of your ending fund balance by $120,000.
So I have a question on that $120,000. If we were not to spend it, we would, of course, gain interest on it. But if we banked it, is there any interest at all on that?
No, that's a taxing capacity. It's not in your bank. It's not collected. It's not collected. It's just a taxing capacity.
But if we,
Don, you have anything you'd like else to add on that?
but if we did
Clarify
pass
one
it,
thing.
then.
If you take the 120,000, you certainly can invest it, or it's part of the funds that you can earn interest on. If you do not take the 120,000, it just goes into a reserve for your highest lawful that commissioners could take in the future.
Future date.
So you could, if you take it, get some interest off of it.
Yeah.
That's my question. Yeah.
So
If you take it and don't spend it,
Yes, that was my
Yeah.
question.
if you take it and don't spend it, you can collect interest on that money. If you do not take it, it becomes nothing, it has nothing to do with our action. It becomes banked capacity for a different year. So,
Sometime in the future.
correct. So theoretically, if we don't take it, next year we would have double that number.
With no interest.
With, it's capacity that next year we could take essentially 2%, because we have 1% banked, 1% that we could
Each
take
year
next
has
year.
its own 1%.
Correct.
So as you look back on these, the previous 1% were less than the current 1%.
I understand,
due
but
to
I'm
new
saying in
construction.
rounded numbers, next
Rounded,
year we could
correct.
collect
Correct.
double that number. And
yeah, and you can see the next line down actually shows your path of taking bank capacity. In 2023, you took almost $450,000 of bank capacity. The board did, I guess 2 of the 3 of you did, the bank capacity. And then last year, there was a very small amount that remained, that $19,000 bank capacity was utilized.
Okay.
And the reason it's recommended at this point is you are planning to utilize, and hopefully it will not come to fruition, but will have to be monitored. You are proposed to the budget, balanced budget, there is a use of reserve. And so you would have to plan to use an additional amount of reserve. In the ideal world, we will close that, so you're not utilizing that. We'll be managing that budget appropriately. We'll see revenue coming in at higher level than projection, and we will be under expending. And one of the areas of under expenditure, which comes down here, and we'll go through that here in a bit, which is vacancy estimates. One of the reasons that you oftentimes don't spend as deep into the use of fund balance is we can predict the use of those monies coming back in. But we'll talk about that because we are telling staff or telling departments and offices they're going to have to plan to utilize vacancy estimates to pay for their cost of living adjustments, that 3% cost of living adjustment. So that's likely not going to be as significant moving forward into 2023. Questions? We also, if you recall, we have a significant amount of resources. I think it's over $800,000 to $900,000 in our veterans property tax. So we would not be moving the veterans property tax. So that's about $198,000. We will be bringing you at some point in 2023. I think we have a meeting with the VSO officer here in 2 weeks. I think the new VSO officer. And I think at that time it'd be worth having us to stimulate that conversation around how do we modify the eligibility of amounts so that we can put more money out to our veterans, because we do have funding capabilities to be able to do that. We've talked about major revenues before, and certainly, want to make sure that we remind folks of that sales tax, in particular, being one of those significant ones, and investment interest being one of those significant ones. Those are two that we really do recognize that we've got to be paying attention to closely. We do anticipate about a 20% less revenue in interest income, and we anticipate less growth in property tax than we had in 2024. We're actually really all the way from 2020 to 2024. We do start to see a plateau in sales tax, and that's in part because of the large construction projects that would be slowing down. In item 3, which is that vacancy estimate that we talked about, you can see kind of the history of vacancy estimates. That alone really does close that gap between what you anticipate utilizing in your fund balance. So we wouldn't expect quite as much necessarily in 2025 as we've had in past years. We have set aside a contingency. In past years, your contingency has included, and that's why it was larger, has included COLA for the bargaining components. We would anticipate that our number would be lower because we will be pushing the cost of living adjustments to departments and offices from those. We obviously will have contingency when perhaps, the vacancy estimates don't come true. We don't have as many vacancies in certain offices. It becomes more problematic potentially to achieve their capabilities to pay that whatever that 3% or whatever that negotiated amount is for the bargaining units. There are some slight changes in personnel expenditures, and we've talked a little bit about that. We've got some reclassifications in the clerk in information services. They are not funded. They need to come with those resources within their own budgets, and they're prepared to do that. We've also removed one position in the Commissioner's office for this fiscal year. We are changing the Office of Public Defense Director. There's an offset because we're not going to have a contract position, but will be a staff FTE. We've also, if you recall, eliminated one of the staff positions, so there'll be one staff position, OPD 1, I think is what it is, and then the director. So there's some minimal changes associated with the department changes associated with that, as you can see, about $114,000. I would just say, in general, we've got 2 additional sheets for you that kind of outline at a high level both the county current expense as well as the miscellaneous funds. For those folks, just to remind folks, the projected county current expense budget for 2025 is $51.62 million. And the combination of all miscellaneous funds is actually greater than the current expense fund. It is almost $78.7 million. And there are just a wide variety of fund sources that range from obviously the road system and Public Works and the County Road Fund to the funding that is now within our Behavioral Health Fund, the Criminal Justice Sales Tax Fund. These are independent funds that have dedicated uses of how they can be utilized. So they are a significant part. They were all reviewed during our workshops back in early October, and you've had a continued opportunity to take a look at those as well. So today I just wanted to give you the high level. We'll be coming back on Monday with some more in greater detail for you to kind of continue to have conversation about. Our anticipation right now, probably the earliest, would be we'll do a workshop on Monday, and then with a little bit more detail. And then on Tuesday, we potentially will be prepared at the earliest to adopt the 2025 budget. 9 a.m.
And to address our PA's problem there. Could he combine one of the positions and increase salaries for the appetite to bring in attorneys?
I think that we could certainly look at what that, is that even, what that looks.
Downsize one position, but increase the salaries
We
to?
could potentially see what that does. I know that I've not had a chance to talk to Prosecutor Sant. He sent some information later yesterday afternoon. I know Margot was starting to put together some analysis of what the request was, which I think is a 10% increase to DPA salaries, I think is what it was. So, so we can take a look at that. That'd be something maybe on Monday we can have further discussion about as well.
Okay.
And he may want to comment more later on that as well here today if you want.
Yeah.
On number 6, department expenditure changes, am I reading this correctly, that the redistricting lawsuit is paid off?
I think it's done, yes.
We're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heck of a deal, you win and you still got to pay out.
Yep.
And it still ended up being about the same lines as always. All right, any other further questions? Hearing none, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the hard work. Public comment. Limited to workshop agenda items only. Limited to 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'd just like to take an opportunity just to comment a little bit about the proposal for that. I think at some point you get to a certain juncture where the caseloads that would be applied, merging position could certainly pay for it. The vacancy issue, I mean, we have a vacancy position, we've had a vacant position for over a year, and I've told this board when we met, part of the savings coming back is that, hey, we've budgeted for a whole year for a position, so essentially it wouldn't be costing new money, but it also wouldn't be returning the money that we expected that would go back into the general fund coming back. So I guess in just trying to be fair and transparent with that process and looking at that, if you've had a position that's been unfunded, we've had a couple recent vacancies, but I think the challenge is going to be is that satisfies it for next year, because that vacancy, if you kind of split it up among your remaining deputies, it is probably going to be closer to a net zero. But then, of course, in 2026, it would be an increase, assuming that we could fill those positions. And that's the struggle. And it's not just Franklin County. And I think I want to be clear, this isn't just a novel situation here. Obviously, we have to be competitive, because I think one of the more unique challenges we have is we have a larger county that I don't want to say the county seat is 7 miles away, but the effective public safety building, the centers where most of the prosecutors will meet, function, and drive, that's a 7-mile difference. So for us to pay one thing and then a 7-mile extra drive to earn extra, whether it's defense side or prosecutor side, that's not going to deter. Obviously, I don't think we're really as competitive. Right now, Yakima County is offering a $10,000 incentive, like a sign-on bonus. I don't think we're really competing for that market, because the Tri-Cities, no offense to Yakima, but I think we're a much more desirable place to live. A lot bigger market, different job opportunities and whatnot, but that makes it difficult for us. So obviously, we will look and try to see how we can do that within our internal budget, looking at the numbers. I could get with the auditor's office perhaps Monday. I know today obviously is going to be a challenge in trying to get that number, but just in looking at the vacancy that we've had, or looking at the outlook for how long these positions are going to be vacant, that is going to cause a little bit of offset. Obviously, our biggest issue is we want to retain the personnel that we have, we are capped at a certain limit because there's only so much more you could do. And everybody in my office, all the deputies are already taking on more. We're covering district court cases. We're covering multiple. I've had to make these changes over years. This isn't something that's just happened. We've had to do that just because we haven't had the funding. We haven't had an increase in prosecutors over the years. So rather than having a dedicated prosecutor, when I took office, we had a dedicated prosecutor doing child support. We've become more efficient over time, and we've basically had to put additional duties on that position, so they're actually taking on felony caseloads as well. And so the child support is certainly a part of that position, but everybody is kind of taking on a different work, and they've taken on an increased workload over the last few years. And we were hoping at first that it might have been just a temporary increase of cases, but I think as our population grows, unfortunately, with growing populations, criminal activity increases as well. The complexity of cases, which becomes the subject of discussions with both defense and prosecution caseload limits. It takes a lot more time in reviewing the cases, and one of the things that I've really been frustrated with as the state Supreme Court evaluates caseload limits on the defense side, that takes all the front-end work from a prosecutor's office. I've been, the fortunate opportunity that I've had of being on the defense side is I recognize with the work that's different. When you're a defense attorney, you are handed, and yes, you have the constitutional obligation to make sure you review all the evidence, but it's the prosecutors on the front end that have to review all of that information to make sure that all of that information is provided to the defense. Sometimes we review things and we decide, hey, there's not enough here for a case. A case isn't prosecuted, so there's not a notch or a tabulation that shows here's a caseload equivalent that was generated. So prosecutors are doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, trying to make sure that we develop enough probable cause, and certainly above that, making sure that we could prove our cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I think that's something that is difficult to categorize, but that's the additional workload. Even though we have cases that are charged and we could tabulate, hey, there's a caseload, we also have the work that's being done in trying to get those cases to be charged and sometimes not charged. And that's just as important, I think, to consider as far as the work in the office. And I recognize, I've said this before, I recognize the issues we have on our side obviously affect the issues of our public defense, and I recognize those changes and challenges. But because this is a workshop, I could answer any questions or clarifications, Eric.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just help me understand also, because I've been working with on our ARPA funding as well. There was ARPA funding provided to your office. Was that one time? Could you just give me the background? And we can do this offline as well if
Yeah, no, I think it's an important point. And so during the ARPA funding discussion, there was a one-time, instead of participating in the general where every member of the county received some kind of compensation as part of an overall retention program, the prosecutors, the deputy prosecutors that were either hired during the window of opportunity would receive a 10% incentive, and that was for if they stayed for a year, but they did not get both, and that was an important distinction. So instead of that offset that was offered from the county for all employees, they basically got that higher incentive.
Is that for a one-year period?
That was for a one-year period. They had to stay here for 1 year, or they'd have to repay it back. And that was helpful. We were able to recruit a couple people at a desperate time of need. I think at one point we were down closer to 45% of our prosecutors. So we kind of rebuilt that up a little bit, and just trying to get people that want to do public service law anymore, I think is the biggest challenge. And this is, again, not just a county issue, it's a statewide issue. And so we're trying to be competitive for a market. I don't think I would have ever said that we need more lawyers, but certainly we do in public service law. And that's the challenge. But one thing I wanted to address too is, as we're thinking about funding resources, this just came up in a recent discussion with Jeff, and we obviously need to look at it more timely discussion and review to see if we could pull funds from the money that we take from the mental health side. Obviously, for our communications and things like that, a critical piece of treating mental health is for emergency responders to respond to those undergoing mental health crisis. So one of the things I think we probably want to explore is that can we pull some of that money that is allocated for the treatment side, can we also pull some of that money from that side, because a percentage of that is certainly part of maintaining a communications infrastructure so that law enforcement, firefighters, medics, treatment providers, they all respond to it. We have crisis responders that go with law enforcement. They respond to individuals under crisis, and clearly a communications piece is a part of that. Whether they're responding with their call outs with cell phones, it all ties into the emergency communication center, where they have to use that communication center to notify the critical individuals that can help and assist and respond. Obviously, we need to look at that deeper, because those funds are usually very specified on how they could be spent, but that could be something of broadening the resources. And one of the things that I've talked with Eric very briefly about is looking at pulling the funds for the FTE equivalents of the DPAs that are providing services for our therapeutic courts. We could certainly draw money from the mental health tax to pay that portion. We just have to track the timing. And typically we have 2 people that are qualified and trained in providing services to our therapeutic courts. So we have to make sure we're basically appropriating the right percentage of FTE work that is being done for that effort. So those are some of the things we can do internally to try to make it so that we're not really taking on a new increase, but we're going to have to be, I think, strategic, as well as broadening maybe how we look at things and how we look at our funding base, making sure that we're tying into those resources that are currently in place, and we just have to make sure that we are fully implementing the opportunities that already exist for us. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak on that and trying to help out everybody out. So,
All right,
any other questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarify a couple of things on your budget that you need to deal with. Eric had mentioned that you probably won't be doing anything till Tuesday morning. He's still working with our office. There are statutory requirements that require the taxing districts to get everything into your office by the 30th of November. However, that's a Saturday, therefore they have until closing Monday. So we can't do any actions earlier than that. There may be 1 or 2 districts that are not going to send in levy information or requests levy certification. We've dealt with that in the past with the city of Mesa. If that is the case, I will be drafting a letter early Tuesday morning, if it doesn't come in by 5 o'clock Monday night, to present with you what you have the legal right to do as far as levying for any of them. But I cannot draft that until we make sure nothing comes in as of 5 o'clock Monday night. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. That's why it's kind of being delayed an extra day. Department of Revenue was late getting the utility stuff. We literally just got the utility numbers out 2 days ago to the taxing districts because they hadn't gotten it done on time, the Department of Revenue. So each taxing district, even if they'd already sent in their certification, can certainly modify it and resend it in. So just want to clarify that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for working with Teresa in assembling that communication.
Any other business for the workshop?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and want to thank Eric again for taking on this task of working with Franklin County and getting our budget in order. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I would agree with those comments. Eric, it has been a breath of fresh air. Things seem to be going so smoothly. I appreciate everything you've done for us and your willingness to help us. Thank you. And I wish everybody else a happy Thanksgiving. So concentrate on the things you're thankful for and have a great day. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Sure you don't want to stay? Yes. My wife